Hello YouTube, it's your boy B3, back with another kicking graphic novel review. Yes, we recently reviewed some Batman Superman, and today we're reviewing Batman Superman Volume 2, World's Deadliest. Let me read you the back of the book real quick. Batman and Superman battle their deadliest adversaries. In the aftermath of a deadly duel with the Batman Who Laughs, which we recently reviewed, trouble abounds for the Man of Steel and the Dark Knight. From the zombie resurrection of the bottle city of Kandor to battling the combined might of General Zod and Ra's al Ghul, to beings turned into living bombs by the Ultra-Humanite, Batman and Superman are in over their heads and need help in their battle against evil. Enter a new strategy. Track down the biggest baddies in the DC universe before they can do harm to others. A villain database that the world's finest can use to stop problems before they happen. Seems like a good idea, right? Not when the system itself turns on you. A rogue Brainiac program has infiltrated the database, and this sentient hub of all things evil has created a death trap for our heroes on the moon. To defeat the combined might of all the villains in the DCU, Steel and Batwoman join the fray to try to help save the day. But will this Ultra team-up be enough? And that's not all. A ticking time bomb, Solomon Grundy, and the deranged fifth-dimensional antics of Mr. Mixius Spitlick and Batmite also plague Batman and Superman in this epic battle royale of a book. The villainous volume collects Batman Superman 7 through 15 and Batman Superman Annual number 1. Returning writer Joshua Williamson from The Flash and Justice League vs. Suicide Squad is joined by the epic artistic talents of Nick Darrington from Doom Patrol and Future State The Next Batman, Clayton Henry from The Flash, and Max Raynor from The Terrifics, and more. Whew. Yes, this was a very fun book with a lot of different stories in it. I'm glad I didn't read the back of the book before I went into this. So, remember at the end of the last volume, General Zod and Ra's al Ghul were teaming up. But then it turns out they aren't really teaming up. General Zod wanted to use the Lazarus Pits to resurrect the bottle city of Kandor, which was destroyed in the Man of Steel miniseries that bridged the Tomasi Gleason Superman run with the Bendis Superman run. It's a bad miniseries, but I did review it. Kandor is destroyed in that, and General Zod and Superman currently have a truce from the Bendis run. But Ra's al Ghul won't resurrect them because he's like, are you insane? A bunch of crazed Kryptonians? Because you kind of go crazy and you're like enraged after you exit the Lazarus Pit and are brought back to life, and you just attack everything in sight. And I'm sure you can imagine why that's a bad idea with a bunch of Kryptonians under a yellow sun. It's pretty insane. But yes, Batman and Superman do have a quick little battle with Ra's, who tells them all this. And they go to one of his temples where Zod is. And this whole book really likes to do the Ozymandias reveal. And when I say the Ozymandias reveal, I mean the villain telling the hero their plot, and then when the hero's like, we're going to stop you, the villain's like, what are you talking about? I already did it. That happens multiple times in this trade. It happens right here with Zod talking about how he's going to resurrect Kandor, and then they're like, oh, we'll stop you, and Superman's like, wait, I just used my supervision on the Bottle City, there's no people in it, and they all fly out. So there's this swarm of tiny Kryptonians, as powerful as Superman, going berserk in this pyramid. And they like fly inside Raish's head and kind of like rip his ear off, basically. It's pretty insane. But they're having to try to fight them. And eventually Ra's uses a red sun grenade on them that he just happened to have and just happened to remember that he had, which seems a little bit like an ass pull, but it's fine. Zod catches them back in the bottle, and Ra's tries to kill them again. It's a little insane. Zod and Ra's fight, and Zod kind of kicks his ass. And you know Ra's al Ghul is a very proud man. He kind of just bounces because he's a little embarrassed. And then we kind of end up with two different bottle cities of Kandor. One of them Zod has and one Superman has. Because Zod didn't resurrect them all at once, just in case. And it seems like he might have taken Lazarus material with him home to another planet where he has a Kryptonian colony. Kinda sad. Also, why have we never been able to restore the bottle city of Kandor? I never quite understood why that was so difficult, because, like, we have the atom. And can't the atom just... Like, if someone wants to explain that to me, I would love to know why the bottle city has never been able to be rightfully restored. Like, can't the atom just do it? Maybe not the whole city, but the people? Maybe just a couple at a time? I don't know. Anyway, Atomic Skull, who was redeemed a while back, and a character that I actually really like. Atomic Skull, I think, is a very interesting character. Is running around Gotham, and all these policemen are trying to take him down, but he's there to warn Batman that these policemen aren't real. They're drones made out of corpses. And Atomic Skull explodes. He's detonated by an unseen enemy, and it really hurts Batman. And this unseen enemy is the Ultra Humanite, which got me really excited because I quite like the Ultra Humanite. He's like this big albino gorilla with a super genius's brain in his head. And see, he was a super genius that had like a kind of weak, crippled body, like he was stuck in a wheelchair, and he had a complex about it because he felt like everyone always underestimated him because of his disability, even though he was like a hyper genius. So he just became a villain because of his insecurities, pretty much. But he's using the energy of Atomic Skull to kind of make all these new bodies, because they thought he was dead, because Superman allegedly watched him die a while back. But he didn't. Turns out the dude, instead of physically implanting his brain in hosts, has now been using it to remote control people. So he makes all these drones out of dead bodies that he can pilot as a brain in the jar, which is kind of a good expansion of his abilities, I think, to be completely honest. But he's taken the energy of Atomic Skull and he puts it in his drones so that he can use them as bombs. And he does that to Batman. He makes Batman kind of a living drone bomb. But the reason he doesn't kill Batman before this is because he wants to kind of force Superman to kill Batman, because he's very concerned about his place in like history and being remembered, because he's really insecure. Ultra Humanite's whole thing is just that he's incredibly insecure. But Superman and Batman do work together to defeat him eventually. And there were some hints that it's like, oh, yeah, this brain, it's been moved from body to body so many times that it now has a degenerative disease. But the radiation from Atomic Skull also seems to be healing it. And it also helps Batman recover kind of quickly from surgery, because he has to get all the little drone parts out of him. Which is, of course, all said because that means they can just bring Atomic Skull back to life willy-nilly. And they do. That's like the last thing that happens in the story, is Atomic Skull bursts out of the grave and says, I need a drink. Which is fine. The next villain is Brainiac, but not really Brainiac. A rogue Brainiac virus got into the Bat computer and stole Batman's files and made a villain out of him. Yes, we are Tower of Babbling this shit yet again. I do not know when Batman is going to learn this lesson, okay? Ra's al Ghul stole your files and nearly killed the Justice League. Batman, come on. Villains keep using Batman's stuff to hurt people. When is Batman going to get a better firewall? I mean, at first in this book, it seems like he and Superman made a database of all the supervillains. And that's pretty normal. I mean, a police department would have that. The FBI would have a database, just files that say who the villains are, what are their powers, what have they done. But it's not exactly that. It's like a weird AI database that analyzes them to predict a villain's next move. And it's like, Batman, have you not learned your lesson from Tower of Babel? Have you not learned your lesson from Infinite Crisis of Brother Eye? Dude, stop this. Stop making these things. And also, maybe the writers should stop writing this same exact scenario over and over. Like, I know it was dope in Tower of Babel, and I do promise we'll review that eventually. I do have those omnibuses. But come on. Come on, guys. Can't you think of something else now? Can't we think of something else? I mean, you have Failsafe and Batman of Zur-En-Arrh, Going Rogue, also things Batman made. Like, can't we just think of something else? I know they're all pretty different. Tower of Babel and Infinite Crisis and Absolute Power and stuff. Yeah, they're all very different. But they're all in this same core concept, and it just kind of makes Batman look stupid. The more you do this, the more you reuse this idea of Batman being unable to keep his files and his programs and his AIs and stuff secure, the dumber it makes Batman look, okay? Please don't do that. I don't want Batman to be dumb. But Steel and Batwoman stumble into the Batcave, and I actually think they're a pretty good choice for orbital characters to also team up like Batman and Superman, because a cool thing about Steel and a cool thing about Batwoman is they made themselves. Like, Steel was inspired by Superman and wore his S after his death, but he never got permission from Superman to do this, and he was brought into the Superman family later because he did such a good job and Superman respected him. Same with Batwoman. She took up the bat because criminals already feared and respected it, and she knew she could use it to her advantage. And then eventually, Batman saw how good she was at this job, and it was actually in the 2016 Detective Comics run for this current continuity where he was like, hey, you should come into the fold. And she does, and she's awesome. I really wish her Rebirth solo title would have been better, but she's awesome. So they have to go to the moon to rescue Batman and Superman, and there's a little bit of them fighting Chemo in this book, which is really cool, because he's an underrated kind of villain. They fight a lava Chemo and a Bat-Tech Chemo, which is really interesting. But this rogue Brainiac virus that isn't actually connected to Brainiac anymore makes this compound on the moon where they're constantly testing Batman and Robin, building robotic versions of villains like Banshee and Clayface, Doomsday, Bane, and putting Batman and Superman in all these different physical and mental trials to kind of learn as much as it can about Batman and Superman, about fighting crime, about fighting villainy, and to learn as much as it can about villainy, period. And eventually it realizes that the only way it can truly understand villainy is to become a villain. So it becomes Composite Superman. I've always heard him called Composite Superman, not Composite Superman Batman. But Composite Superman Batman is just like such a fun idea. It's a half Batman, half Superman with like this weird bilateral symmetry where the right side of the body is Superman and the left side of the body is all Batman. And the original Composite Superman was also like kryptonite, which was insane. But this one, instead of being a kind of biological kryptonite thing, it's a robot with a Brainiac AI. So now we have like a robot Composite Superman Batman. And honestly, I kind of didn't think Superman Batman would be in this book, the composite one. I don't read the back of trades anymore before I read them, because the back of the trades often have spoilers that I don't want to know. So, and this was like a huge surprise for me, and I was so happy to see him. But he goes down to Earth to be a villain, and eventually Batman is actually able to talk the AI down. It wants to be a hero. It wants to help them. So they end up isolating it in an old computer that can't access the internet, where it lives out like a superhero fantasy until they can figure out what to do with it. And I think it would be really cool to see a future story with this mecha composite Superman Batman as a hero. I think that would be really cool. I do. I want to see him again in the future. Also, I love the ending because the Bat cave is trashed. And Batman's like, okay, once we get the Batmobile and Batplane wreckage cleaned up, then we can... And Steel and Superman both make excuses to leave so they don't have to help clean. And Batwoman's just like, no, I'm not going to do that. Like, no pretense. She's just like, I'm not going to help. Then we see two kids playing with their Batman and Superman toys, arguing over who would win in a fight, Batman or Superman. And these children appear to be raised by Batmite and Mr. Mixias Spitlick. And they're telling the kids not to fight, but then those two end up getting in a fight over whether or not Batman or Superman would be the victor. And we kind of get some what-ify, elseworldy kind of stories where those two manipulate reality to make Superman and Batman fight and see who would win. And, you know, neither one really wins. It's kind of like, hey, this is the main continuity, Batman and Superman. They wouldn't actually ever end up really fighting like this. You know, it doesn't make any sense, blah, 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 etc., etc. But people always ask that question, who would win, Batman or Superman? Honestly, I'd give it to Superman 9 times out of 10, but I know that there are situations where Batman could win. But if Superman, in my mind, really wanted to beat Batman, like, he had no reservations about it, no holding back, etc., didn't want to confront Bruce about anything, Superman, from miles away, could knock him off a roof with super breath and heat vision him. Superman could super speed up to him and punch him in the orbit. How does Batman block that? He can't. And we have seen books where that has happened in what-if-y kind of stories. But I also know that there are times when Batman would win. Batman defeated him in The Dark Knight Returns. Batman defeated him on, what was it, Earth... It's not -11. -1? When he became Devastator, he beat Superman then. Batman Who Laughs beat Superman. But we've yet to see them both kind of no holds barred, really, really go at it, full kind of main continuity level Batman and Superman. And I do kind of like the opinion of this book where it's like they cast it as a dumb question to ask. It's a question that doesn't matter because they're on the same team. And they make each other stronger. Why would you want them to fight? Why would you, etc., etc., at least as far as main continuity goes. When it's Elseworlds, when it's that Black Label shit, you know, do whatever you want. But the main continuity, I agree. Also, you remember in Batman Endgame, written by Scott Snyder, penned by Greg Capullo, or penciled, not penciled, drawn by Greg Capullo, let's say it like that. Batman says, people always wonder who would win in a fight, me or Superman. The answer is, when we fight, everybody loses. And that's true. That makes sense. If you're in a world where Batman and Superman aren't on the same side, everybody loses. Remember Injustice. Remember Injustice. Now we get a new story. There's this huge snowstorm in Gotham. And Solomon Grundy is a bomb. He is a weapon of mass destruction. He's going to explode. Every time Solomon Grundy dies, he resurrects, and he's different. His powers are different. His brain is different. Sometimes he's very innocent. Sometimes he's very evil. Sometimes he's very dumb. Sometimes he's very smart. And this Solomon Grundy seems to be a dumber, simpler one. Complete sentences aren't easy for him. Kind of a very, if you remember the Justice League Unlimited cartoons, it's really that kind of Solomon Grundy. But he has these weird bomb powers, and he could explode any minute. And Batman and Superman got to get him to the swamp that his curse was from, so that he can be renewed and become a new type of Solomon Grundy. And they know this because they say he has a connection to the green, and Poison Ivy is able to tell them this. But I thought Solomon Grundy had a connection to the light gray. you know? Because, there's like the gray, the green, and the red. I know Earth 2 Solomon Grundy, the one from the New 52, was like the avatar of the gray. And I could have sworn that New 52 main continuity Solomon Grundy also had kind of a gray connection, but I could be wrong about that. I don't really remember. It's been over a decade, and I read a lot of comics, folks, with a lot of different continuities. So I could be wrong about that, but a connection to the green, I guess maybe because he's connected to a swamp, but a swamp that's in balance would be pretty equal parts red, green, and gray. Does he have a connection to all three? I think that would actually be very interesting. If he was a being that kind of had connection to all three, because he's a human body, the red, he's a zombie, the gray, and then whatever bullshit you want to give him for plants. But yeah, I don't really see how he's connected to the green. That's so odd. I guess just because swamp, whatever. Swamp is where Swamp Thing live, and therefore green, and he from swamp, so he green. Anyway, Swamp Thing actually is there, and you guys know Swamp Thing is one of my favorite characters in comics, so whenever he shows up, it is a huge delight for me. And he puts Solomon Grundy in the swamp, and all this green grows around him and renews him, so he does die, but Solomon Grundy's curse, he'll always come back different. And they hope that he comes back a good Solomon Grundy, because he didn't seem to be a bad Solomon Grundy. This is more of a Frankenstein's monster-esque Solomon Grundy. And when I say Frankenstein's monster, I mean the kind typically portrayed in popular media that speaks in like the third person, a very Boris Karloff 30s kind of Frankenstein. Because in the book, Frankenstein's monster is actually quite intelligent and literate and articulate, more so than me. Best book ever written, by the way? Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. Best book ever written. Hands down. Nothing has ever challenged it. Anyhow, we have a lot of nice moments of Batman and Superman, really in all of these comics, and I think the one with the Brainiac virus and the composite Superman is very interesting. It analyzes villains and why they're the way they are, just in general, not specific villains, and analyzes why Superman and Batman didn't end up like them despite their traumas, because Batman has very similar traumas to many of his villains, but he turned out to be a hero, And his aesthetic and his methods, one could even call villainous sometimes, because he's pretty violent, and he dresses in black and tries to scare people, and he breaks the law a lot. There's a lot of really interesting questions asked in that story in particular. I think out of all of them, that Brainiac virus with the composite Superman was my favorite in this book. But they were all good. This is a solid run. Much better than the New 52 Batman Superman book, I think. And of course, we do have a very cool variant cover, galleries in the back and stuff. I always like when the variants are included. So that's it. Thank you all very much for your support. This was Batman Superman Volume 2 World's Deadliest from the 2019 run that was between the two metal events, Dark Knight's Metal and Dark Knight's Death Metal. It's pretty cool. I am going to be reviewing the next volume at some point. I don't even know if it's called Volume 3, but it is Volume 3, because it comes after Dark Knight's Death Metal. And it seems pretty cool. I can't wait to read it, because I'm enjoying this run, and I can't wait to get to the next run, because I hear it's pretty good too. So that is it. Thank you all very much for your support. Remember to rate, comment, and subscribe. Check out all the cool links in the description below. Facebook, Twitter, etc. And I'll see you all next time. Bye for now.